Hello, hello, hello. Here we are. So, while this is still our 10th week, this is actually our 11th episode. I can't believe it. So, here we are, episode 11, 10th week. We had our special edition, episode 10, with Greg. Today, our guest is Vert. And it's really interesting conversation. Much longer than we normally go, but I think you guys are gonna like this one. Stephen Kennedy's back as my best guest host. I am going to say that. And we had a really good conversation with Bert. We might have Bert back too. So sit back, listen in. As always, subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Give us feedback. Give us some reviews. Let us know what you think. We really want to hear from you. Okay, here we go. Welcome, everybody. We're back. It's Robbie here, host of Miscellaneous Candor, frank, honest, and otherwise outspoken. And today is our 10th episode. We have done this for 10 weeks straight. Can't believe it. We really have done it. And today we have two special guests. First, back again, guest host, Stephen Kennedy. How are you, Stephen?
I'm doing well, Robbie. Thanks for having me back again. It's an honor to serve your audience with pure logic and a little bit of a dash of entertainment.
Oh, here we go. We're already starting, everyone. All right. And then I would like to welcome our additional guest for today, Vert. Hi,
Hey,
Vert.
how you guys doing? It's good to meet you. It's an honor to be here for your 10th, though. That's for real. So congratulations on 10.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So, everyone, you know that I do not mince words and we jump right in. So, podcast reviews. First, before I start, because we all know that I'm the one that listens to podcasts for the most part, I'm going to ask Stephen. Stephen, did you listen
Well,
to any this week?
one of these days, next week for sure. So
Oh my God, you keep
it's gonna
telling us
happen.
that.
It's gonna happen.
Okay, we
You
hope
gotta,
so. Well, I
you gotta
will
do your homework,
say
bro.
yes. Thanks, Vert. Thanks. So, what did I listen to this week? I listened to, we talked about the Brilliant Idiots podcast, which I actually do like, with Charlemagne the God, and I think the guy's name is Adam Schultz. I have to go back and look, be sure, but it was hilarious, and they just kind of go down rabbit holes, but the conversation is very entertaining and always a lot of fun.
Hey,
I,
Robbie, may I ask you a question here? Or are we not doing that yet?
oh no, you can jump in at
All
any
right.
time. This is a
I don't
conversation.
uh I don't follow pop stuff, especially, and the kind of hip hop I do listen to is not popular. So like,
Hmm.
I'm not someone who knows what he's talking about when it comes to Charlemagne. But
Okay.
has not Charlemagne said some stuff in his life that you'd want to distance yourself from? Is that not true? Like, is, isn't he a guy? I mean, look, again, it's pure ignorance on my part, but I thought there was some repeated misogyny and some repeated kind of insanity. And if that's not the case, then I'm glad to be wrong. But I don't know. I when I heard someone like you enjoys listening to someone like Charlemagne, my first
Hmm.
instinct was why,
I
you
love
know.
it. I love it. Vert, you're amazing. Take it on.
Well, Bert, I'm glad you asked that question.
Right
And
out of the gates.
you are right. In the past, that's true. He was a misogynist. He did say a lot of things that were extreme. And he even says that. But
Okay.
he has actually made a 180. He has come out and talked a lot about his mental health, a lot about the trauma that he dealt with growing up, a lot about the trauma that he dealt with from his father,
Yeah.
and how that influenced his perspective on things, on women, on how he saw the world. And he has made a total 180. In
All right.
fact,
Well, I'm happy
he
to hear that.
even has, yeah, he has a whole mental health um seminar that's coming up sometime in New York, mid-October. He's written a few books about it. And so the way that he looks at things now, it's in that lens.
Good.
So I'm of the mind that, particularly like in this world today, where people are talking and they say things, and then that's remembered
Sure.
because everything's out there. If someone does make a change and is really trying to grow, which it seems like that's been his path, then I'm accepting of that.
Yeah, and
But yeah.
those are about the words I was going to use. Anybody can be an ass, but if you're willing to, self-reflect and look at yourself honestly and grow past it, and especially someone with a platform, then use that platform to say those things out loud. I was wrong. I needed to grow up. Not like trauma is not something you grow up from. I'm just trying to be brief, but
Hmm.
you know, then good for him. And I'm glad to be ignorant, and I'm glad to be wrong. So cool.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, I think there might be some things where he even has said, I was ignorant and I have grown. Like
Yeah.
he's been
Right.
that forthright about who he was and who he's always trying to be now. Because he
Absolutely.
talks about how it's a continual process.
All right, so you proved me to be wrong and stupid. So now, would you like to continue on with reviewing the podcast you enjoyed so much?
I wasn't trying to make you wrong and stupid. I would never
Well, I
say
was
you were
happy to be. Like
stupid.
I said, hey, maybe I'm ignorant, and I was, and I'm glad. Because hey, if we're not here to learn stuff, why are we breathing?
That's true. That's so true. So, okay.
That's a very good question, actually. Why are we breathing? There is
Oh
really
my goodness, here
no
we
point
go.
to this existence. I mean, it's just this whole, it's just a big piece of crap, you know? You know what I'm
I'm not
saying?
trying to talk too much, being a guest and all, but like, I genuinely struggle with that. Like, bro, heat death of the universe is real. This all ends one day. Not just our minuscule lives, but like, I mean, yeah, it's going to take eons, but eventually there will be nothing in this universe but
Yeah,
absolute zero. And it's like, so we're going to sit here and argue about whether or not we should feed hungry people? Like, come on,
exactly.
man.
Exactly.
So,
Okay. Just we can go back to that. I just really want to get this silly podcast thing out because it's kind of ridiculous what I listened to this week. And then we can talk about how the world means nothing. So, okay, so yes, silly podcasts I listen to, and I know Bert. Before we got on here, you mentioned you don't really listen to podcasts either. So this is that audience. This is my segment. I will say I stepped out and listened to something totally different this week. You all know I always listen to Pivot, Prop G Markets, Joe Rogan,
really.
um, to try to get an alternative view
Mm,
on things. And then I listened to this week, and I can't believe I listened to it. It's called Disney Travel Secrets. So there's a podcast.
oh, no.
Wow.
I believe it right off the bat. My wife grew up a Disney person for
Huh?
sure.
There was a podcast called Disney Travel Secrets. And it was this episode, I listened to the most recent one. It was about resorts. And evidently there's like these different types of resorts that you want to go to, and you want to go to either and I'm kind of forgetting because I was in and out of sleep as I was listening to it.
As one does when you're talking about Disney travel. Yeah.
But there is clearly an audience for it.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
no.
They have
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
I was just, and they went into detail about how you should get the king bed versus the two
Yep.
queens, and how a certain type of resort, I think it's a deluxe resort, is better than a value resort and the
Which they do
difference
on
between the
purpose. They put
two.
they put those labels on them so people are like, well, I don't want to be stuck at the value option. We're better than that on our
Right?
beaches. Yep,
But I'm thinking about what could the cost be? And then they were talking about,
astronomical.
then they were saying, well, how can you save? So what you could do is you should go and you should actually buy breakfast from the grocery store and bring that into your room. And then that saves you long term. And then if you have small kids and if you're at the deluxe resort, then you can have a character breakfast, which saves you time to go to the actual um park where you have to wait for the, it was a whole thing.
Hmm.
I really want to bring that up because I am sure you both had some comments on that, even if you didn't listen to the podcast.
I think it's a brilliant podcast. There's definitely an audience for it. There's so many people with kids that are looking for, insider secrets of how to get the best bang for your buck and how to know, an efficient source to do the best things. If you're there for 3 days, 4 days, what are the best things to do? There's obviously not enough time
And
to do
you
everything you want to. So,
Disney being one of the largest and most cutthroat corporations around today, they of course stratify their park experiences and make you keep paying,
oh yeah,
and of course they make the deluxe stuff, and then that's what they advertise so that you're going to feel less than or like you're missing out if you're not there. They want you to, even if you've got, I mean, what's a full 3-day park hopper cost now? Like $400 freaking. Like it's
I
I've
know.
absurd. So
It's
like,
so crazy. Yes, value and
even
deluxe. Thanks, Vert. You corrected me on that. Yes, that's those are the proper terms.
even if you want to, well, I was maybe accidentally correct about that, but like, so how hard is it for a family to scrounge together 2 grand to get them and their kids in to have food and enjoy the day? And now all of a sudden it's like, well, you better stay at Disney Park. Your kids won't be happy. Oh, you stayed at the booty one? Sorry, can't get a character breakfast there. Oh, you're not at the grand whatever? Sorry, we only do whatever there. Like,
yeah.
and some of these are even inside the parks themselves. Like you can leave your hotel and be on park property instead of like, and be like, you know,
Hmm.
quarter mile from a roller coaster type thing. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, my wife wanted us to stay in one in Disneyland
Mm-hmm.
very badly. And we were adults and I couldn't understand why, and still don't, because it's not my jam at all. But I mean, even the cheap rooms in this resort were like $1,400 a night. And
Are
that's
you
just like,
kidding?
no,
A
they're,
night per
yeah,
night?
yeah.
The
Bro,
cheapest.
my brother married his wife, who, for those of the audience doesn't know, but you guys have heard my brother. His wife is the one that was an NFL cheerleader. She wanted the full. They wanted a full Disney experience. I think she wanted a lot, especially they did it at the Princess Castle in Orlando.
Hmm.
Like they got married
Mm-hmm.
inside of it. I can't imagine what that probably costs
Oh
just
my
to have the
goodness.
venue. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You're talking 20 grand just to let people stand in there and get married. I'm
Yeah.
sure of it.
Wow.
So that's
Wow.
Disney monetizes every aspects of those parks, and that includes manipulating people to think that they're getting a less than experience if they're not blowing it
Mm-hmm.
out.
It's so interesting that you say that because one of the things in the podcast is she was talking about, well, if you're at the value resorts, the thing about the value resorts is you just have people walking right in front of your window. Or if you're at the deluxe resort, you have she said, I thought this was hilarious, carpeted hallways. And you can't hear people, the walls. I don't know. She said this. I don't know if it's true, but it seems like the walls are thicker in the deluxe resorts than they are in the value resort. I was like, oh my goodness.
So correct. I mean, correct me if I'm misunderstanding. My understanding was that she is for the people and helping them figure out where the best value for visitors is and how to
N-
get the most out of the best bang for your buck. Is that incorrect?
I don't. So I'd have to do a little bit more deep diving on this podcast. It seems to me, and when I look at it, I'm looking at it right now, when I look at the show, that they literally all they do is they have a travel business, right? A travel agency business. And they, for the most part, only focus in on Disney. Yes, travel hosts and authors, Rob and Carrie Stewart, share tips, advice, and insider knowledge about everything Disney.
Or are they getting a little commission from Disney for promoting their resorts? That's
So you would think so, right? But to Bert's point,
Yeah,
Disney is so maniacal. I think that they would accept the free press, and these people are just knowing and learning everything about the ins and outs, and anything they might be a travel partner, but I don't know if they get any kickbacks from mentioning all of these things
man.
on the podcast. I
If you've
don't
ever
think
been
so.
down Disneyland and you gone walk around downtown Anaheim, every third spot in the strip mall is some sort of park travel hookup. Like you can buy day passes cheaper, or they'll be at, like you said, a travel agency trying to set your experience up.
Hmm.
It's a cottage industry because think of the millions of people that are in and out of Disney parks all year long.
Yeah.
You know, so if you can go to an agency,
Have either of you been recently? Oh, you've been, right? Is that you've been?
I haven't been since I got sick. For people that are listening, I've been disabled about 8 years, but we went a lot beforehand. Like I said, my wife grew up a Disney person and still feels magic there, so we went there a couple times.
I was wondering, with those prices, is the food still just average, or are there some actual good, is
Well,
there
one thing
actual?
I wanted to say about prices, like if you go off
Hmm.
strip Anaheim, so if you buy like a 3 day park hopper pass, they write your name on the back of it, right? And that's how they identify you in and out of the parks. They just take these 3 day passes and buy them and walk back to their spot and erase the name off the back, and they sell you a blank one for the day, and you just write your name over it in pencil and give it back to them at the end of your trip. Like it's that corny to try to weasel a couple dollars out of them.
Mm.
But
Wow.
Mr. Kennedy, what was his specific question?
Oh, I was just asking, considering the prices of everything over there, the price
Oh, the
of
food
the
quality.
restaurants, yeah, the food
Yeah, food
quality.
Yeah.
quality.
Again, almost a decade since I've been, but the food quality's really pretty good. To again, it's 10 years. They've gotten a lot more corporate, so I don't know if they've cut anything. But no, the food used to be really good. Um, like you'd go to a little thing, looks like a roadside stand type thing, and Liz would always get this giant Monte Cristo sandwich.
Yeah.
We've eaten at the nicest place in Disneyland that regular park users can go to is called Blue Bayou. We've eaten
Hmm.
there a couple times, and it's what you would expect for like they shoot for fine dining, but they're going to turn over 400, 500 people a night. So like,
Mhm.
how fine is it going to be? But it's good.
Hmm.
And we've also eaten at Club 33, which is the members only secret club in DC, and that was legit. I mean, there was a seafood spread there I've never seen before. I got a filet mignon that was for real. Like it, that place is extravagant. But you
Wow.
got
So it's a secret place?
yeah, it's really easy to Google it. Like if you're down in Disney, man, I don't know the geography real well, but you're kind of near the Blue Bayou. Like you're in the New Orleans, old Louisiana part of town.
Hmm.
Um, there's a doorway next to a jewelry shop, and it's got a little oval on it with the number 33, and there's a buzzer there, and you buzz and you give them your name, and if you're on the list, they let you in. And it's not just a place to eat, it's where Walt Disney himself used to take all of the honored guests in the park, and especially those he was doing business deals with, because he has all these there's these Disney-fied things in different places, and for some reason there's a lot of taxidermy, and you're like, man, that taxidermy vulture is not really kind of fitting the vibe. But what he used to do is put microphones in all the taxidermied animals, so he would be like, welcome to my private club, please, rival businessmen. And I say men and not women because let's be honest, it
At
was
the
the 50s.
time.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, please sit down and have a meal unencumbered and speak your free minds. And then he'd leave and he'd just go listen to the whole conversation.
Wow. So there's something recently that sounds very similar to.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But there's
Did
like you walk in,
Diddy.
you
Sorry.
you walk in and there's a harpsichord right there. And if you want to sit down, you can play it. And they're like, oh yeah, Michael Jackson played that. Paul McCartney played that. They go down the list of just great artists that have been in Disney and been invited to the club and decided to sit down and play. There's a anyway, whatever. We're not here to talk Disney all day, but man, so the food quality. Yeah, I mean, if you're at Club 33, it's going to rival uh,
Like a five
any.
star
Yeah,
Michelin.
like no, because it's not like the fine dining presentation, and they're not there to wow you with
Oh,
their
okay.
specific. But
Okay.
the food is going to be like
Really good.
It's not like Blue Bayou is like the best wedding food you ever had. Club 33 is like, this is a real restaurant that spends a lot of money on shellfish.
Got it. Okay. Okay, well, they talked a little bit about the difference between the deluxe dining experience versus the
Mm-hmm.
value dining experience, obviously, and they talked about how there were some more fine dining restaurants. I think, they've continued to build at Disney in general. I have been the last time I was, oh my goodness, it's been about the same time since I've been.
Hmm.
When my daughter was young, I took her to Disneyland and we were there. Um, for a few days, but I haven't been since. And then I was at Disney World when she was playing volleyball, and there was a volleyball tournament in Florida, and we all went there. But we didn't, and we ended up not going into the park. We just did, and I'm forgetting what it's called. You probably know the outside part that has all of the stores and the places you can go
Yeah,
eat and
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
So we did that Disney Walk or something
yeah.
walk it was called. Anyway, we are at 19 minutes and we've been talking about Disney this whole time. So let's change up a little bit.
I
Um,
just want
Steven, what do you want
one
to
last,
say? Yes.
one last bit. Wasn't Disney World just so much better when it was small and simple? When It's a Small World was like the biggest attraction. Those were the good old days.
I kind of agree with you. I mean, I think that
Look, they
there's
didn't
so
spend
many
billions of dollars
parts.
on Star Wars not to build a Star Wars world. Come on, let's be honest, man. They didn't spend they
I
didn't
know,
spend how
right?
many billions on Marvel to not get rid of Tower of Terror, the coolest ride there, and replace it with some sort of superhero hustle. Yeah.
This is true. By the way, I you
Superhero
know what?
hustle. I love that superhero hustle. Okay, go on.
I can't. I hate the superhero hustle. I cannot. I've stopped watching those movies. It's such garbage. I can't understand. And I have friends my age that love watching these movies. I'm like, these are not movies. This is pure trash. It's all about the money grab, and I can't tolerate it anymore. I just wish
Yeah.
people would stop watching this crap.
We really underestimate how many men of our generation still suffer from what's called a power fantasy, where
It's absurd. I
they
mean,
still have that little boy inclination in them to be the strongest and toughest, and that's why they collect all these plastic toys as grown men, and that's why they watch this stuff, and it they're like, yeah. And the funny thing is, we're this is something I was also going to bring up if another topic called AI came up, but
No,
there's
let's go into it. Let's jump into AI.
there's
Let's jump into
information
AI. Yes.
there's information, and then there's context, and it's like
Hmm.
you can watch a superhero movie and get the information and see, oh, good guys beat bad guys, yay, but that's not the whole story. Like the whole freaking Avengers first thing, all the Thanos stuff was just a discussion against fascism and how we have to bind together despite how we look different to defeat fascism, because it's either them or us is going to win. It better be us. But no one ever, like, the not nobody, but the amount of people that make that can make that contextual
connection.
and perceptual connection are few,
Yeah,
and
right.
it's people that never paid attention in English class because they never realized the book is not about the words; it's about what it says. You know,
Hmm.
so that's a pushback. I like. It's funny that, and the reason you bring this up is because again, there's so the same kind of men that are still trapped in this power fantasy thing are
Hmm.
also not then understanding all the context and nuance of real life. And that's where you get so many online misogynists, and that's where you get so many people that are so easily swayed by just absurd myths and disinformation. They're not seeing the world contextually. They're seeing the world as true,
Yeah,
false, left, right, 1-0.
I hear you. I hear you, but there's also a lot of crap in there too. Like, it's all, you look at, even think about Star Wars, right? Every main character now is a female. Why are they doing that? Because they know they've already got the guys. Now they don't have to get the girls. All these, these superhero movies, I agree, yes, some of them have a good actual lesson in life and morality, but a lot of it is to, bring in the dollars.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, I know we haven't gotten into the AI topic, and we'll get there in a second, but I really want to talk about this conversation about men because this has been on the topic of my mind, and I probably because
For how
I
many
do
years
live in
now? I
it.
don't want to know. I shouldn't say out loud on
No,
this
no,
podcast.
no, no, no. Let me get my thought out, please. Let me get my thought out. I'm talking about right now the state of men. So there is an article that was just published in the Wall Street Journal like 22 hours ago. And I'm just looking at just a snippet of it. And it's America's young men are falling even further behind. Men in their 20s and early 30s are more likely than their female peers to live with their parents. And many say they feel aimless and isolated. And there's this huge graph of the gap between the men who are living at home versus the women who are living at home. And they talk about this guy who's 25. He left college midway through his sophomore year. 5 years later, he's still living with his parents, working in his dance company. He hopes to go back to school, but he doesn't know what it would take to get there. And he says, nothing's really stopping, he says, but I'm just standing in my own way. So it's like he knows he's standing in his own way, but he can't get past it. And there seems like, and I am saying this, right? I'm all for the strides and everything that has happened with women. And I'm really upset too about some of the things that are reversing. However, I do think there is a crisis of men right now from, and probably because I have a daughter, I'm looking at her age group, right? There
Mhm.
is a crisis. There are a lot of men who are younger who are just stuck in their rooms. They might be, as you say, in a superhero hustle, whether that be gaming or movies or whatever. They probably might be working from home because there's so much work from home now, right? There's not a lot of going into the office. And and then two, the numbers of who's going to college and who's not and who's getting into like all of these different
Mhm.
spheres, there is a lot less men.
Right.
And I think that because for so long, and I'm going to say this, men have been, you know, some have been pretty vile and some have been pretty misogynistic in terms of just like eliminating or moving women out of the way for so many years that the conversation, having it now, and particularly given Roe v. Wade was reversed, having it now seems to some people like it wouldn't quote unquote be relevant, but it needs to be relevant because the impact is happening now. So I was wondering, have you guys heard about this? Have you seen it? Do you
I
know any
would.
men that are going through this?
I know. Well, two things. I would say I know a lot of young men in their 20s that are having a near impossible time with employment and life, but for them, those are economic factors, not so much sociological. Um,
But I
they're
feel
doing
like that's a part of it too.
well.
It's yeah, right? Like it's intertwined, it's threaded. You don't think so?
I know. I got a friend who lives four doors down from my in-laws. He's 30 and has never been able to leave the house. He works at Google and he still can't afford. He's not a he is a service worker slash infrastructure type thing. So he's
Mm-hmm.
not like when he said works at Google, he's not in tech. He's just
Yep,
at
yep,
tech.
yep.
But still, you're employed at Google. They're going to pay you a salary that
Mm-hmm.
you would think that you'd be able to buy a house within 60 miles of the office, but you can't. You can't rent an apartment off his salary, so he lives at home and he helps his parents out. And those are economic factors. Another thing I thought was interesting regarding what you said was a lot of men, if they don't win the first time, they give up. So they're in high school and they're taught to be this and they're told they'll be this and they believe they'll be this. And then, they stumble their way through college and they're like, what now? And they didn't realize that, 50 million people their age group tried a lot harder than, okay, what now? You know? So they're,
Yes.
so they're going to get a degree and be underemployed or underprepared. Um,
A 100%. I feel like there's a big, huge gap between the understanding that without struggle, there is no progress,
I think, yeah, I think what you're trying
and
to,
that's missing.
I think
Well,
they haven't realized that everyone else has to try harder than them, so they're not trying hard, and everyone else that has tried harder somehow magically succeeds. Funny how that works.
And yeah, so what do you think about that, Stephen? You were going to say something.
I was just gonna say that you've got it, it's an interesting world we live in these days, right? So kids, these youngsters these days are taught, hey, you don't have to work hard. Just go become a gamer and get a following, and they will pay you to watch you, and life is easy. You know?
Everybody wants to be a Fortnite streamer,
Yeah.
right?
Right. And then
Yeah.
so you've got all these kids living in their parents' house and trying to gain a following. And when you've got millions of kids doing the same thing, thinking that, they see these few examples of people that, yeah, there's a large number because there are so many people doing it, but really it's a small percentage of folks, kids that, get this following, and, they can say, give me a donation, and people send them tons of money. But it makes all these kids think that it's very easy to do it, and they can just, it's gonna happen to them.
And I
So they
think
sit
when
in their parents' house, and for years now, there's keep on going on, and they're just trying to get a following. They don't even have a job. They're
yeah,
in some other world.
they're on TikTok trying to get famous,
Yeah,
and that's
Yeah.
the difference is when we talk about you're talking about you say the words kids. You know what I mean? We're not like it's easy to say. Well, being a famous YouTuber is just today's version of I'm gonna grow up and be a rapper. I'm gonna grow up and be a football player. I'm gonna grow up, except the kids that still, you know, the kids that said that generations past knew by 10 or 12 years old they weren't going to be a pro
yeah,
athlete, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas online streaming is literally accessible to almost every single human in the world. And I say that being disabled and understanding what disability means. Like almost anybody can stream, you know?
yeah.
Yes.
Um, and so that's weird that it's encroaching later in life. And it's weird from our perspective because we all remember a world without internet. Um, I saw one awesome other statistic about men, and it was soul crushing. And I'm going to get the exact numbers wrong because I wasn't prepared to talk about it just now. But
Yeah, I know we're totally
what are the
going
numbers?
off topic.
It's something like 60 or 80% of men over 40 or 50 have zero friends.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
like they go to
I
work,
saw that
they
too.
come home,
I
and
saw
that's
that
about
too.
it. They work on the house on the weekends or you know
Hmm.
watch some football. But like,
Wait, are you talking about? You must be talking about married men. Am I correct?
no, no, and
No,
even in my
no.
existence, living in this building where there are 7 or 8 single men over the age of 40 or 50, career, lifelong single men, just how it
Interesting.
worked out. They don't see any. They go to the like one guy wakes up every day and gets coffee at the same place, sitting around for 2 hours reading the paper, and then he goes home and he stays home.
Huh.
Another guy goes out when he needs food and he comes back and he stays back. And because of my position in the building as disabled, I'm around a lot. So
Hmm.
I ended up talking to all these guys, and they're always interested to come over and kick it just to have a conversation to fill up their day with a human experience. And
Interesting.
it's nearly universal for men that older men simply because no men aren't boys aren't being raised to be men that have friends. Boys are being raised emotionally
Yes,
shut off.
they are, and they also are being raised to be so dependent on their parents. They also are being raised to not go out and fail and keep going. Like you were saying, the whole like, oh, I gave it one shot and that's it. No, you have to give it multiple shots. And
And
I, and
again,
I,
we're living in a world dominated by male human beings that work their ass off and succeed mightily. But those, we're not talking about the outliers. We're talking about just the casual lives that we know. And I still think a lot of it's socioeconomical. The boomers have destroyed the economy. We're looking at it. None of our kids can be gainfully employed. Every job's a gig job now. Like, what are
yeah,
people supposed to do? But so I think that's an easy thing that can make someone shut down as well because we can't lump a I hate to lump any group of people in together, but like I mean I know 12-year-olds that are playing basketball at a 14-year-old level, point guard, dope, killing it, 12-year-old boy. All he wants to do is play Fortnite online, and like he's not in the driveway shooting free throws. He's like, no, I'm very good, but I'll never be a pro, so I'm just going to game and stream. And it's like, well, how do you think you get to be a pro, man?
yeah, you got to practice. You got to go out there. You got to do.
Yeah,
But then he needs someone who is like him to push him to do that.
yeah,
Right. And that's the thing. But I do think this conversation about men and boys and what you mentioned, I saw that. I don't know about the exact statistic, but I did see that too,
Yeah,
because
men are
obviously I've
just
been
men are
talking
friendless at
about
their old
this.
age.
And because I've been talking about this and saying it out loud, obviously the algorithm picks it up and it comes on my phone. So I've seen that. Um, there's an AI piece. But yeah, it has me concerned, but not only just because of my daughter,
You
but
know, I
just
was
in general. Like we need people. I think there's been a little bit, and this you're probably going to be like, "Whoa, you really?" Well, Robbie, you believe this? So I was talking about the fact that I also too have been hearing a lot of this, and I think it's because of the algorithm on my phone
mhm,
because I've been talking about men and things, so it's been popping up. But I do feel like men, boys, like we need them, and we act. There's been a discipline, and Vert, you might think that it's weird that I'm going to say this, where I feel like there's a bit of an agenda to say that we don't for a very long period of time. And I think that that has had an impact on how younger men and younger boys see themselves as they grow, and
yeah,
how older men feel like what they can say and what they can't say.
you
And
know,
I'm
some
not talking about the extremes like the Diddy's and the Weinsteins and the
no,
Epsteins and those fools. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about good men who see that there's been like this huge sort of chasm with women. So they want to support that. But then it's kind of gone so far that it has, now we're seeing these other sides. And there
you
has
know,
to be a balance
you keep
because, yeah, there
you,
has to be a balance.
you mentioned how you feel about this, especially in regards to your daughter, and even I, right? Um, I am someone who's done his best all their life, I think, to try to understand other sides and be compassionate to people. But like, I'm still learning. Like today, earlier with the Charlemagne stuff. Hey, maybe I'm wrong. I'm glad to be wrong. But even I'm still learning because now I'm at a stage in my life where I have extended family that are young girls. And
Hmm.
I never realized how young girls become women,
Oh,
and I'm talking
yeah.
about body changes. Um, and when a girl becomes a woman, they suddenly have all of these extreme responsibilities thrust upon them. And it's not just about monthly physical health care, it's about what can happen to them. You know, they're
Hmm.
suddenly young kids living in a world of grown ass men. And they have to grow and they have to develop in that moment. They have to understand these things. There is no equivalency for men. There is no, oh, okay, well, you got hair under your armpits now, so we're going to sit you down and let you know what you're capable of and what you can really do. There's, so to a large extent, there's nobody growing up young boys. You might have a father or a mother or both who does a good job at that.
Hmm.
You might. Um,
Maybe. Yeah,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, it's
I
unlikely. It's
I
less
feel
than
like
likely.
the first time I had an erection, I felt like there was a whole new responsibility thrust upon me. You know,
Oh my
it
goodness.
was a whole new world. It was a whole new
Yeah,
world.
that's why you relate today because you found another one of them and you were back to Disney with your whole new world.
I'm gonna have to put the E on this episode. I'm gonna have to put the E on the episode.
A whole new world of touching myself before the podcast.
Oh my! How did we get here?
You invited
Okay.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah.
No, but we were talking about emotional maturity, and it's a real thing. And me, I was over 40 when I was really struck, and because multiple women in my extended family slash life, because I'm not going to be too specific, um, multiple girls are having this happen at an age that I did not think was plausible or reasonable. I thought this stuff
Mm.
happened years later, and then all of their mothers are like, "No, this is common. This is what happens," and I'm like, Jesus. And it's no wonder young girls have no time for young boys, and it's no wonder teenage and 20-year-old women sometimes like to date older men because it's just, dude, I cannot imagine what it is to be a girl in middle school knowing what you know and being where you are and being surrounded by middle school boys. Like, what the
Mm.
hell?
Yes, but you add on, and let's do this for the end of the show. You add on the phones and the AI. So,
Hmm.
Vert, I understand you have some pretty strong feelings about AI and how it impacts
Yeah,
people in everyday standing. So, what
that's it.
are
You
your thoughts
want me
about
to
that?
sound off on AI? It's a total scam. It doesn't work. It's never going to work. Um, Listen, artificial intelligence is fine, but you know what it'll never be is artificial knowledge. We talked earlier. I was talking about context and knowing what something's really about. Artificial intelligence has no capacity for that. It will never have the human capacity for true creation and true understanding because it doesn't do that. A lot of it comes down to who's programming it. It's coders. It's people who see in ones and zeros, like the kind of that you need arts and humanities brains in every room. Think of the famous instances where tech has failed, like facial recognition that doesn't recognize people of color because only white people were in the room to make it. Like AI has the same problem. You can stuff it full. You can illegally scrape the internet of all the creative work of all these humans and rob from them to build your database. But you're just building it, image matching, image recognition, and work flowcharts, probability. Oh, most people who typed this sentence ended with this word. Well, I'm not talking about that computer, and you can't tell the difference. You know, Here's an awesome one. I actually got prepared for this one, right? Because you said we might mention. I'm pulling up the website right now.
Well,
So you go on, Mr. Kennedy,
uh,
Yes, jump in, Mr.
on your
Kennedy.
own show.
I,
Please talk.
I'm
sorry,
just going to
no,
let
no,
you two
no.
talk because this is very interesting. Go on, Stephen, please.
I was gonna say that to your point. Let's take that a little further. Yes, it's programmed by coders and people inputting information. Now, down the line, imagine if they are able to input human decision making processes.
Sure, that'd be amazing. As of now, no one alive has any concept of how to do it. I mean, imagine flying cars. You know what I'm saying? We're
That takes me Back to the Future. We were supposed to have flying cars by now.
um, this is I'm reading this out of CIO magazine. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
a study by a company called Uplevel, right? So
Mm-hmm.
everybody at GitHub had the option of using something called GitHub Copilot, which was an AI
Yes.
copilot for compiling your code, right?
Yes. Listening.
Absolutely no gain in productivity from using it, right? So nothing went faster. It also introduced 41% more bugs as opposed to what humans are doing
Hmm.
because AI is guesswork based on what's happened in the past, and that's all they know how to make it be. And you're right. If you could do contextual analysis and all of that stuff, but again, you need humanities majors in there programming that kind of stuff and how and who is going to do that. You know, I've been railing for years that what the tech industry needs is a chief reality officer in every company who understands the humanities and the real world. So you don't do things like build a facial recognition app that doesn't understand brown people. So you don't do things like AI that tells you, oh yeah, that mushroom, that's cool. That's just a regular button mushroom, and you go and make soup and your family's all dead, which has happened recently. Like maybe not to that extreme, but people are being poisoned because their AI app is like, yeah, go eat that mushroom. It it's just because it looks like an image it thinks is cool. It doesn't have the knowledge to know the difference, the experience. Like you ever taken a hike? I bet you had a great time. You ever taken a hike with the park ranger? Bro, it'll blow your mind because
Hmm.
they know that spot. We
Mm-hmm.
can we can all walk down the dirt path and look at trees and be like, "That's real pretty." See an animal, but when you're with the park ranger, oh, this is an influx from this river, and this kind of
Hmm.
animal breeds here in the summertime because the water back. Like it's you'll never have how much scraping can you possibly do before
Hmm.
something clicks and it goes, "Cool, now I have experience." Nothing.
Hmm.
You're
So,
right.
Stephen, what do
Stephen's
you
right
think?
that you need to have in the future for AI to ever work. It's got to do that, but
How
that'd
are
be
we going to
artificial
get there?
intelligence, not that'd
Yeah.
be artificial. Yeah, we have artificial knowledge. What really scares me is they have recently released an AI program to help new companies write their compliance documents. Does that sound like the scariest thing in the world? Like,
There's AI that does everything for companies right
can you
now. There's
imagine
an
turning
app that does
it's
everything. I can
AI?
actually. I can. I
Oh,
can. And I do think, to your point, the co-pilot may not have worked, but there are some things that do work, right? There are some things that do cut time off for people, save time, allow people to do things that are built around machine learning and artificial intelligence and models. But those are very specific use cases
sure,
Yeah.
sure.
and may not necessarily need the contextual um, impetus that you're talking
So
about.
I
But
see
Stephen,
a
I want to hear what you say. I want to hear what Stephen has to say,
yeah, yeah,
Vert.
yeah.
Man.
I don't know. I'm the guest.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with both of you actually. There, Robbie, there are, like you said, there are very specific situations that AI is very successful. And also, you've always got to have a human element there to, make sure that it is functioning properly at this point in time. Um, and I agree with Vert too, is that, you got, without the true human experience, you can't, AI is not going to be widespread until we find that method to infuse the human experience into AI.
You know what? I see a lot of parallels to. Um, you guys know how we met and where I was 10 years ago, and that
Yes.
was if you're in if you're on planet Earth and involved in business at any level, you have heard of that company, and they are somehow important to you, probably at some level. Big thing. I sat down with their CEO 10 years ago because that CEO was so very excited to talk about all the ways they were going to start using blockchain, and
Yes.
it's
Yes.
been 10 years and still blockchain is used for maybe some international shipping stuff. Other than
Mhm.
that, it's for buying drugs on the internet. You know, like, who the hell ever found a corporate use case for blockchain? But how many billions and billions of dollars were sunk into it because companies had to develop them that we have to be first to have the blockchain, etc. But there is no use case, and that's the way. Like, Robbie, you're talking about there are specific times where AI will save you a lot of money, and maybe we can turn AI loose on some CRISPR technology and let's invent some drugs faster. I would love for that to happen, but
Yes.
for
Okay.
but for now, man, it's like it's blockchain of a different sort. Like, it'll have its use
Mm.
cases, but unless there is some to what Stephen was talking about, unless there's some transformative quality, some transformational act coming in the future, like it's just going to be that because you know you still can't make a meme without one of the people having six fingers. You know, like AI is still we're still there. Like, we're still at a point where you can't make a fake picture of somebody without something being, oh, look, well, they got 3 feet, but it's cool because look how good the AI did otherwise. Like, no. And again, like, there's a huge part of AI where I'm bitter and hateful
What?
because
Why would we think that?
I know. And
because
I was going to say 5 more minutes for the bitter and hateful speech. I'd
bitter and
like to
hateful
hear
is
that.
because I'm someone who deeply loves and respects the arts, and I deeply love and respect
Mm.
artists. And most of my friends are artists still, even
Hmm.
in a city wrecked by COVID when they all had to leave. Like,
Mhm.
Hmm.
my whole life has been, and then there's a reason I was an English major. I love the creative act, and I love breaking it down and understanding it, and the I love the act of human creation and communication. Right? AI is going through all of that and stealing it without permission just because it lives somewhere on the internet, and they're using that to make themselves better, but there's no compensation going to anybody from whom they're stealing.
Yeah.
And it's like when Uber started. It's like, well,
Hmm.
this is probably a racist term now, but they used to be called gypsy cabs. We're not supposed to use the word gypsy, but everybody knows what a gypsy cab is. It's just some dude driving
Yeah.
around. Is like, yo, you need a ride? $15, man. Anywhere you. That's all Ubers are. But they just have it.
Hmm.
But they have an app, so it's cool to have like some untrained person who probably doesn't have insurance driving you around the city they don't recognize. Like, while the people who do the work, the cab drivers, who have to have the medallions and the knowledge and the access and the experience and the safety regulation. I was almost a taxi inspector in this city. I know what they have to do, and it's a lot of work, and no Uber driver has that. And I just it's
But I mean, you think about the public, in the city that you're in is the prices are ridiculous for cabs. So I
they're
think
not they're identical to Ubers and Lyfts, if not cheaper, because I check all
oh
three.
Now,
what
Yeah,
now they are. Yes, now
are
they
they?
are.
Okay.
Yes, they are. They've had to adjust to
right. Because
ensure that
Ubers and
they're
Well,
still
there
in
we go,
business.
and that
Ubers and Lyfts were
was
never cheaper. They were just subsidizing the rides with investor money until they could have a
yeah,
large enough
which
market cap that they could raise their rates.
yeah, and that's a very good point. Is that once they got the certain amount of customer base, those prices shot up. But
Hmm.
still, I found it was cheaper to go by Uber or Lyft. But now you're saying that the cab services had to adjust, which
So
I
I,
think.
I can't leave my apartment without getting into a car to go somewhere because of
Mhm.
my disabilities. Last time we went somewhere, a friend of mine had an art show, so we cabbed over with a neighbor. The neighbor uses Uber, calls a car, taxi shows up because taxis are now
Yeah, I've
the
been in
new
one of those.
Uber.
I'm like, wait a second,
It's
you're a cab, but
just so they can make half as much money just because,
yeah,
you know.
but
Hmm. Hmm.
If
Yeah. Well, Ubers, that's a whole nother question. But again, kind of speaks to the point, and Stephen, I think I said this on the last podcast when I said that Stephen Sotomayor said that um, it's not like they're trying to make the internet the world. They're trying to make the world the internet.
yeah,
And that's why it's so difficult because you just can't. I mean, there's a point where that's just not going to happen. To your point, Vert.
mhm,
Okay, well, I think that's a good place for us to end.
that's it.
So,
We've been going
everyone,
for another
thank
2 hours.
you. Yes, Bert, thank you so much for joining us. I don't know
Good.
what you said. You said something and you
I said I
started
could
to
go for
laugh.
another 2 hours. Yeah,
Well, you're always welcome to come back if you want to come back and chat with us.
anytime you want to have me, but I know you got to leave time for those My Pillow ads, so we'll duck off.
that's a
We
whole
haven't
other.
gotten there.
Now,
We haven't
now,
gotten
now we're
there
going to a
yet.
whole other topic, which I'm happy
Yeah.
to discuss.
Okay, people. All right. Well,
All right. Well, I had a lot
this
of fun. Thank you
ends.
for having me on.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you,
And
Brett.
this ends our 10th episode of Miscellaneous Candor. Frank, honest, and otherwise outspoken. All right. Don't forget, write reviews, follow us, subscribe. We definitely want to hear back from you. All right. Say bye, Stephen.
Goodbye, my lovely people. And as Robbie said, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to get your feedback, any suggestions on what you want to hear from us.
Okay. Thank you.